Well, he was my wee brother, and we lived just across the way there in Chamberlain Street, number 11 Chamberlain Street. He was the first one of our family to be born in a hospital. Most of us were born in the front room. Long time ago, too long. So we're here to remember him, and we're here to remember his legacy. And someone said to me, what do you think David would make of the situation now? If he was alive, what do you think that David would think of the political setup now? Well, overall, I think he would have been very disillusioned. He'd have been glad that there was sharing power, that both our communities, our traditional enemies were sharing power and trying to bury the hatchet, not in each other's heads, but in the ground. I think he'd be glad of that. But I think he would have been very disillusioned, because for 50 years we had a one-party corrupt state. Now we have a two-party corrupt state. And the Frankenstein monster lurches from one scandal to another and staggers from one crisis to another. The miracle is, of course, that it has not fallen into the ditch yet. But let me say this, it won't matter what happens. Some of the people up there, the leadership up there, will have to commit mass murder before the British establishment will do away with them. No chance. Because the establishment have decreed it will work, and they will go to any lengths that they can to make it work. He also would have been dismayed at the cack-handed implementation of the agreement. Tony Blair said this on TV: I will deal with Sinn Féin, and the Chief Constable will deal with the Loyalists. That was code for I will sanitise and politicise one, and criminalise and demonise the other. And nothing is so clear as this, as the establishment uses its people in the media to malign and castigate the Loyalists at every turn. Gordon Brown made a wonderful quotation. He said, we can't call them the gutter press anymore, because they have fallen from the gutter into the sewer and the rats are out. And after 6.5 years, we had the historical inquiries team, and they'd made 72 arrests. 70 were Loyalists, 2 were dissident Republicans, one of whom, Jerry McHugh, said he had been offered immunity from prosecution by Sinn Féin if he got off their back. Of course he didn't, and he did 2 years. But 70 Loyalists screamed that a deal had been done. This was confirmed when it emerged that there were on the run letters and royal pardons underneath the heads of the below the heads of the population, outside of the assembly, outside of the agreement, and it undermined faith and trust in the institutions. And of course, the guardians of truth, our press, their silence was deafening, absolutely deafening, as they carried out the will of their political masters. Now, we also have the most politicised police force that we've ever had in our history. Everything has been tainted. The judiciary has been tainted. The institutions have been tainted. We have another thing that really sticks in our craw, and that's the revivification of the supergrass system. The supergrass system was brought out of mothballs after 30 years. It failed in the 80s in Manchester. It failed with Republicans. It failed with Loyalists. Then after 30 years, it was taken out of mothballs again and aimed at one section of the community after all, to continue the process of vilification, denigration and demonisation. Another black propaganda campaign, and still it goes on. Sorry. There was a lot made of parity of esteem. John Hume talked about parity of esteem, that every culture should be esteemed equally, that each should enjoy parity of esteem. He said all people are esteemed, but to quote George, or to paraphrase George Orwell, all people are esteemed, but some people are more esteemed than others in our community. Wherever there is a nationalist majority in the council, no flag is flown, even on designated days. We have a playground named after a guy who was on hunger strike, who carried a weapon that had been linked to the White Cross massacre. Yet we have political parties voting for the name that to be called. There was no parity of esteem. The Equality Commission complained about it. So far, nothing has been done about it. Hopefully, it will be in the future. So, where is parity of esteem? Austerity. We were promised a financial dividend from the Good Friday Agreement. I believe the government have gone back on that promise. I believe the dole queues are longer. I believe the waiting lists for hospitals are longer. I believe the poor are being persecuted by private enterprise. You're clawing back the little that the poor have. One unionist politician in Bangor said he was delighted at the so-called trades union reform because employers would be delighted with it. Of course they would be, wouldn't they? As the government try again to strip any power at all from the trade union movement. All right, what can we do? What can we do to change things? I believe and would suggest that we should have a moratorium on the Good Friday Agreement, re-examine it, and let's apply it fairly right across the board. I believe that we should introduce a civic forum. A civic forum was advocated under the Good Agreement, but was never implemented by politicians who wanted to corner the power for themselves. That's one thing. With a civic forum appointed, they're appointed from all walks of society, could feed into and scrutinise the workings of the Assembly. I would say this: the good thing about this agreement is that for the first time in our history, traditional enemies sat down together. That's good. It has changed positively the atmosphere in our country. That's good. But I believe we have to be careful not to demonise, marginalise and misrepresent one section of our community. That will only lead to terrible trouble in the future. The Haas talks took place. Mr. Haas came and he went away depressed. And he said if some of these things are not sorted out, it will inevitably lead to violence in the future. I hope and pray that that does not happen. Thank you very much indeed.